Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Single Malt Review. Thank you for joining us, and today we have a pair of Glendronachs. Very strong hand. What are they, Dave?
Well, not many years ago, Glendronach started releasing their own take on the cask strength Scotch selection, on the same vein as Aberlour's Abuna or Glenfarclas 105, combination of whiskies bottled at natural cask strength. In Glendronach's case, about 55%. There have been 4 batches to date. Batch 1, I drank all of it, so I don't have it here. It was quite nice, but apparently wasn't as well received as those that came later, so batch 2 and 3 departed slightly. Batch 4 we've not yet got, but we're getting there.
Now, batch, we should say these are, just like Abuna, no age statement cask strength releases, so they're a vatting of different ages, but they must have some old whiskey in them if they've come all the way down to 55 and 54. That's not as strong as it would be if it was all sort of sub 10-year-old whiskey, so there's definitely some interesting stuff in here. We'll just have to find out what it is.
It's all Oloroso sherry and PX casks. Batch 2 here to start with, 55.2%.
So we'll crack into batch 2, see how we go. So yes, batch 1, which alas we don't have any longer, that released to, from where I was standing in the room, just a little bit of public chagrin. People weren't particularly happy with it. I think the consensus was that it just tasted a little bit too young, and that Glendronach was a whiskey that needed a bit of age before it really became real Glendronach, which I agree. I didn't really taste the batch 1, but I did taste the Octarine 8-year-old that was released around about the same time. They were doing these experiments with younger whiskey, and I didn't think it really had it didn't really have the soul of Glendronach at such a young age. So
It was. I remember being quite peppery, quite spicy.
Anyway,
Yeah, though.
this one, non-coloured, non-chill filtered, we should say, which you can pretty much expect across the board from Glendronach these
It's a
days.
lovely,
Very good.
very dark gold colour, verging
So-
toward orange.
It is a lovely, rich orange gold, and one we can trust as well, since it's natural. And very, very belying of its 100% sherry matured heritage, which is of course classic Glendronach. Their recipe is really, though they do a little bourbon maturation, it's very uncommon to see it in any great consistency, and their bread and butter is Oloroso and PX, Pedro Jimenez casks, which is very generous of them, because that must be a astonishingly expensive process to do the majority of your whiskey in such hard to get casks. But anyway, let's have a wee taste and see what's in here. I must say it's very fresh, very lively for Glendronach, so you can definitely smell immediately that it is a younger than usual animal that you're dealing with.
There's strong molasses, some spices, and some citrus fruit.
There is citrus, which is unusual. The lively citrus you don't normally get in the Glendronach. It's a very, very, very smooth, very integrated, quite a syrupy, sweet whiskey. So to get these sort of sprightly, lifted characters out of one is unusual, certainly.
On the tongue, though, getting into some darker fruits, some sour plums, kind of some Christmas pud and some spices.
Yes, indeed. At full strength, it is a bit much at full strength, which is understandable given the strength on it. But it's just tasteable. There's the tasting notes suggest there is ginger, which I agree with. In fact, I applaud these tasting notes for being remarkably concise. We've got here sultanas, ginger, and orange peel with dark chocolate and oak. And those are all things people can understand. It's not suggesting that it has the aroma of a gooseberry bush in the morning in July.
A droplet of spring dew on the eyelash of a wandering deer.
Where some tasting notes want to stray in the direction of, which I think is a little bit pointless, because people just don't know what that means.
Yeah, it's very down to earth, very relatable tasting notes, and, well, quite true from my experience, at least.
No. See, when you keep things simple, then much easier to get some agreement.
Sweet, spicy, but dark and rich. Yeah, Christmas pudding is my overwhelming connection here. Christmas pudding and even dark chocolate.
It's unmistakably two things. It's unmistakably young, but on the other hand, it's unmistakably Glendronach. So I think even if they missed it on the first one, as people seem to suggest, I think they've taken that under advisement and they've aimed just a little higher in the age this time with the blend, and I think they've hit it this time. They've come into their stride and they've invented something that is probably as young as Glendronach can be while still being itself, and so that's a bit of a blending masterwork really. Whoever their master blender is there.
Billy Walker, I believe.
Wow, their master distiller is Billy Walker.
Oh, yes, of course.
I'll have another man in there somewhere, or woman, increasingly women doing the blending these days. Down in the depths of their warehouses doing the blending, and they're doing a pretty remarkable job, I think. So yeah, much better with water. Didn't take a genius to probably posit that given the strength, but this has softened it and opened it up. And I think that's easily recommendable to anybody who's a fan of cask whisky or Glendronach or both. And considering they're both really quite affordable releases, that's a pretty easy recommendation to make.
May still be available on the shelves. May have to shop around because it's been a couple of years since these were released. But hey, you never know.
Well then, let's see if the more recent third release is better, worse, or the same. I'm hoping for better, but we'll see. Catch you back in just a minute. Right, well I can't say I'm in any way disappointed by the second one, so I guess we'll have a wee look in the third, which is over on my side, so I suppose I'll pour it and see where the range is going. Of course, what you really want to know is how good the 4th edition is, because that's the one that's for sale now, but alas we can't tell you that because we don't actually own a bottle of the 4th, so you'll just have to glean what you can from these older editions and use that to see if it sounds like something you'd enjoy, because I'll bet you the 4th edition is going to be pretty similar to the 2nd and the 3rd. I think the only blip in the radar there was the number 1, and I think everyone seems to be of the opinion that they found their stride now, and they're pretty well coming out quite consistently. So, number 3, it's just a little bit less strong than the first one.
54.9, so 0.3% difference.
Very similar tasting notes as you'd expect coming from the same mix of casks, Oloroso and Jimenez.
But supposedly I think a veering toward the sweeter and lighter end of the spectrum. Milk chocolate as opposed to dark, more fruits and flowers than spices and nuts.
Yes, they're suggesting golden syrup this time, no ginger this time around. That's a fairly bold statement. People always say they can taste ginger in Glendronach. It's one of the sort of spicy tells for Glendronach. Not that Glendronach needs a tell, it's one of those whiskies you should just know off by heart, really. It's just so unique. Anyway, this one I think has just a slightly more gentle aroma. There's not quite so much prickle there. Of course the alcohol is lower, but it's pretty microscopically lower, really. So
a bit of marmalade and even a pinch of cinnamon.
Oh yes, certainly cinnamon. Quite a lot of peel, candied peel. Really quite warm. A little bit more wood on this one. Maybe slightly more expressive cask that was used, but in terms of colour, they look quite identical. Alas, we're down the GoPro. In fact, we're down our entire rigger today. Sam's on a bike ride, alas, and he just hasn't turned up in time. So if anything appears to be on fire, then that's, well, it's our fault, but also his because he wasn't here. Anyway, moving right along. Let's see what's on the palate.
Oh, that is without water. It's a little more drinkable, more readily drinkable than batch 2.
That's pretty approachable, actually. That's really quite... That's syrupy, but it's honey as well. It's really quite a lot of that Highland heather honey coming through.
Honey and some blossoms, like orange flower.
And it's really rather smooth. I could almost, I won't, but I could almost enjoy this completely naturally. Goodness, that is a bit of a change. Let's see what some water does.
Curiously, that has brought out the spirit. I'm smelling the alcohol more.
That will happen with some younger whiskies. Adding water brings out sort of, it brings everything closer to the surface, so it will accentuate everything that was there to begin with. And in young whiskey, that's always going to be spirit. So it's a bit of double-edged sword adding water to some drams, but when you've got something that's that's more alcohol than water, there's not much else you can do really, unless you want to sear your gums off. So this has gotten really, really very, very zesty actually. There's lots and lots of citrus, mostly orange zest coming through.
Those tasty notes again are quite on the ball. I'm now tasting a little milk chocolate. There is some definite lime zest. There's some Satsuma mandarin.
I'm not getting their golden sultanas. Possibly I just haven't had a golden sultana, but there's a bit of dried, sort of a stone fruit, maybe not all the way dried. One of those nice sort of soft ones you get in the punnet. Yeah, very good. Oh yes, I think I might have a favourite already here. Let's see. Oh yes. No, this is definitely my favourite. It's smoother, it's easier to drink, and though it's more expressive, it's also tighter. The flavours are better woven together, with no one thing sort of popping up above the others, and it's just as classically Glendronach as the last one, ginger or no ginger. Yes, that's really, really rather good. So, based on that, I think we can say, not having tasted the fourth one, that these are getting better, or at least they were up until number 3. So unless some disaster happened in number 4, I'd say, was I recommending it to myself, I'd have no trouble going and making the arguably quite small investment on batch number 4, because I like my Glendronach just as much as the next man. Only bad people don't like Glendronach, it's a fact. It's just such a lovable whiskey. Well, we should do the score. We should still remember what we'd had in our minds for the first one. I'll start. I think the first one, it was pretty good. It was pretty good, but it was really, really riding the line between something that was too young as opposed to just old enough, and it had a foot each way. It wasn't my absolute favourite. I'm going to give it a 73. What are your thoughts on the first one?
Oh, first one, I liked it a great deal. I liked some of the heavier, darker flavours, the slightly sour fruit, the Christmas pudding, and that balances nicely with the sweet components, the typical Highland sweetness that I like so much, especially in my Glendronachs. I'd give it a full 78. I was very pleased.
So, can't say not solid scores for not a budget whiskey, but a very fairly priced whiskey, especially when you consider how much is really in the bottle with that massive percentage. Now, the second one for me, that was really, really quite an uptick in maybe not quality, but skill in how it was put together. I think they're really, really learning every time they make one of these, which is a very, very promising sign, and I think the expertise shown in building that blend that they did, I'm not sure if it was necessarily even much older. The percentage wouldn't suggest it was, but I think just the expertise and the art that went into blending that together really, really shone. I think it was a much tighter whiskey while also being a more generous one. I'm going to give that one an 82. I'm going to go much higher with that one. What do you think?
In contrast, I would rate batch number 3 slightly lower. It's more vibrant, it's sweeter, it's sparklier, but at the same time it lacks some of those savoury components which elevate batch 2 just a little bit higher. So I'd give it's still a high score, it's a 76, so it's very, very close. The two are, they're very close kindred spirits. But I just prefer batch 2 slightly because, it's got a great number of things going on and they balance very nicely.
Well, there you go. Consistently inconsistent. You might just have to hunt one down and decide for yourself. They are sporadically available. Do not, unless you're really, really enthusiastic, pay a great deal of money for one that someone has collected, because I think that would be a bit of a mistake, because one, they're getting better, not worse, and two, I don't think Glendronach is going to stop producing them anytime soon. The range is certainly not going to become limited, and I think anyone that's trying to hang on to an older version in the hopes of it sort of snowballing in price is probably maybe up the wrong maybe up the wrong tree on that one. So I would have no qualms recommending batch number 4. And in fact, if anyone has tried it, we would love to know if it's any good, because we haven't. And we may go and buy one, we may not. So see how good your description is. At any rate, thank you for joining us. This one was probably just a hair longer than usual, but we did have to do 2 whiskies, and we wouldn't want to do any of them in injustice by hurrying. So thank you for sticking around. We will have something very exciting coming up very shortly. We've got a busy day ahead. We're going to knock out all of our Christmas content in one go. So we will see you then. And in the meantime, Sandra.